Hi there, welcome to Stat Graphs Part 1. In this part we're going to look at box and whisker plots, and in Part 2 histograms. I want you to on your calculator highlight Stat Mode as has been done on this one, and you hit the number 2 to do that, or you can scroll to that section of the screen using this button. So when you've done that, I'd like you to hit Execute and come to the screen here. Here are the scores from the last 12 matches for 2 basketball teams. We looked at these back in the stats calculations, part 1, so you may still have those entered in your calculator. If you don't, I'd like you to enter Team A into list 1 and Team B into list 2. That may take a little while, so you might like to pause the presentation at this stage, because we'll go on now and look at graphing. So there's the graph option there, so we will select that by hitting F1 immediately below it. So I'd like you to do that now, and we come to the screen. So we want to set the calculator up to do some graphing, so the set button is over here. So to choose that, we will hit the key immediately below it. So I'd like you to do that now. So here we have stat graph 1 on this calculator is a histogram. Now in there you might have various options like scatter and so on, but we really want a box plot in there. So I'd like you to scroll down so that graph type here is highlighted. So to scroll down there, we'll use that button, and I'd like you to do that. And so graph type is now highlighted, and we see some options on this page for different types of graphs, but box plot is not one of them. So we need to go to the next page, and to do that we will hit F6. So I'd like you to go to the next page, and now we see there are other options for graphs, and the one we want is the box plot in there. So to select that, we will hit F2. I'd like you to do that now. Okay, so almost set up now. We have chosen a box plot with the median marked, a med box. The median is marked inside the box. We have Team A's data selected because it's list 1. We're also saying each one of those occurs once. Now of course if you go back to stat calculations part 2, you'll realise that sometimes the data has a frequency other than 1, and we put those frequencies in another list, and this is where we would tell the calculator to do that. So you can do the same with graphs if they are of group data as well. Alright, so we seem to be all set up there. We might have a look at this line. It might be handy to get the calculator to display any outliers. Okay, so I'd like you to scroll down to that outliers line so that it is now highlighted, and we want it on, so there is the on, and to select that we will hit F1. So I'd like you to do that. Now without outliers on, we will have an indication from the calculator of all those data points which lie well outside the main body of data, hence the name outlier. So let's get on with it now. Seeing everything is set up here, we can hit Execute to draw some graphs now. We now need to select which graph we're going to draw, so we're looking in here at the select button. So to choose that, we will hit F4. Let's do that. Okay, on this calculator, the stat graph 1 is already selected to be drawn. It has draw on. If yours isn't, then you could choose on by hitting the button immediately below it, F1. And also, we need to make sure the other two graphs are off. If they aren't, you need to scroll down and use this option here, off, in the same way to make sure they are turned off. Okay, so once you've done that, you may hit draw or execute so that we will produce the graph. And there it is. How easy was that? We now have a box plot for Team A, and you can see to the left a small square, and this is the way in which the calculator shows an outlier. So there was a very low score lying well outside from the main body of data. If we wanted to draw this on our own graph paper, we could choose this little function up here, trace, by hitting Shift and then F1. So I want you to do that now, and we see crosshairs have appeared on that lower score, and also the calculator is saying that the lower score in Team A's data was 12. I want you now to scroll to the right using this button here. If you do that now, you find that the crosshairs pop on to the next point of the graph, and that is the end of the whisker, which is saying that the score there was 55. Now, do you remember what each of these means? Because you can scroll to each of these features of the box plot. The end of the box is Q1, the score below which says a quarter of all scores, and the line within the box is the median, which is the middle score when all the scores are placed in order, and the upper end of the box is Q3, the score above which there's a quarter of all scores. So you could actually scroll through all of those and find those values. Now perhaps we'd like to draw a graph for Team B, so let's come in here and let's exit this. I'd like you to push that button there now, and we return to this screen where we can again set the calculator up by hitting F6. So let's do that now, and we're back to this window. So we want to change stat graph 1 to stat graph 2. So let's find graph 2 down here, and we do that by hitting F2. So I'd like you to do that now and come to this window. So set up stat graph 2. Now we still want a med box, so we'll leave that there. The X list though, the data is now in list 2 for Team B. So you need to scroll down using this button here so that list 1 is highlighted, and I want you to choose list and the number 2 as we did before in the calculations presentations, so that we have list 2 in this position. I'd like you to do that now. So just checking, you're telling the calculator that the data for Team B is in list 2. Frequency is still 1, which is correct. Outliers are on, so that's all good. Okay, so we've set it up to look at Team B. So let's now hit execute. We have this window, and again, same process, you might remember now. Want to select the graph, so we're going to hit F4, and up comes this window again. Now this time we would like to have stat graph 1 off, so to do that we will hit F2 here, and that means Team A will not be displayed. Now if we scroll down using this button here to stat graph 2, Team B's data, and choose on this time, we'll produce this window here. So we have stat graph 1 is off, Team A is off, Team B is on. Okay, if we now hit execute or draw, either of those two, we will produce Team B's box plot. Let's do that there. And there it is. Now we might want to compare the two teams, so let's draw both box plots together. I'd like you to exit this screen now and come back here, and of course if we're selecting both graphs we'll go to select, and to do that we will hit F4. So I'd like you to do that, and we have this screen again, and of course we would like to change this top one here. So what we need to do is to turn it on by hitting F1. And when you've done that, you can hit either draw or execute and come to here and onto our graphs. This is an unbelievable feature of the 9860 to so quickly produce comparative box plots like that. So you might notice, how has the calculator done it? Stat graph 1 is on top. Team A. Stat graph 2 is underneath. Team B. Before we go, because we've done a good job here, the 9860 has really functioned well for us, but what about this down here? Have you been noticing that when the box plot came up, there's this icon also? So perhaps we should look at that. Let's hit F1 because that's the key immediately below it, and have a look. The crosshairs are back, sitting on Team A, stat graph 1. It's labelling that up there, stat graph 1, crosshairs are on there. So the calculator is actually indicating that under that one there button that we just pushed, it will display all the statistics related to Team A. So let's have a look at them by hitting execute. Oh, we're back to there. We've seen this before, where all the statistics were displayed. This is magic. You can go back and get all the statistics you want about the data, as well as have a graph on the screen. So I'd like you to scroll down. So that's indicated that you will be able to go down page there. So I'd like you to scroll down, as we did before, and come down to this part of the page, and you can see now Q1 and Q3 that we only mentioned before in stat calculations are shown there. So just remembering, Q1 is the score below which there's a quarter of all scores, and Q3 is the score above which there's a quarter of all scores. Now if we scroll down just a little further, I'd like you to do that. Let's go down a little further. We have a little bit more detail about the mode here. And so what's it saying here? It's saying the mode score, the most frequent score for Team A was 91. There was only one mode, in other words, there was no other games that had two scores the same, higher frequency. And how many times did 91 occur as a mode? It occurred twice, which made it the most frequent score. Okay, you could go back and scroll to Team B's box plot and flash back to its list of statistics, but I'll leave you to play with that. So we're finished now with graphs part 1, and I'll see you in stat graphs part 2, where we'll look at histograms.